Hi everyone, Tea Drinker here. Today I'm reacting to Chainsaw Man. I am finally starting this anime. I've been waiting so long to finally start it. Today's the day. You can see the full reaction up on Patreon. I don't want to say any more, I just want to get right into it, so here we go. What's behind the door? Ah, cuts. Guess we'll have to watch the show to find out. Hello, protagonist. Oh, spiky hair. I wasn't expecting that in anime. Love the animation so far, really nice. Kind of the watercolory backgrounds with the cel-shaded characters. Great use of shallow focus there with the trees. Whoa! Is he? Oh, I've seen a plushie of that before! Oh, I forgot that was Chainsaw Man. Just one devil? Oh. That breakcore soundtrack, hell yeah. The Pulp Fiction reference, are you kidding me? So if you're watching on YouTube, I couldn't include any of the music, but rest assured, I thought it was an absolute bop. This is cool, I like it. The poor dude. It's barely anything. This is a great job of establishing the world. Okay, interesting. Okay.
このタバコ食ったら100円やるよ。マジっすか。いただきます。
いただきます。Oh my god, the art style is brilliant. And the fang teeth. Okay, so far, gotta say, very intriguing. I'm feeling it. Poor guy. At least you have a really cute dog, though. Don't worry, it's anime. I'm sure you'll lose your virginity. Sell your body. That set design is so over the top and dramatic. I love it. I think I'm really going to enjoy this show. Oh, come on. Oh, whoa, poor little pooch. So it's a world in which devils live, and the devils can be a dog with a chainsaw. Gross. This is such an interesting idea for a story. It's an adorable dog. Is he sick as well? Great, from better to worse. That's some cool 3D animation there for those buildings going by with the lights. Is he being brought here to be killed? But now your contract is up. Yeah. Oh, straight up stabbed. Oh. This is so cool. That bass soundtrack in the background is unbelievable. This is so good. I guess that's it then. God, if only he could have just been killed instead. Talk about an inciting incident. Death. So grim. Is that his head? Like, was his head cut off? Oh no, not the dog.
俺は悪魔と戦ってるうちに死ぬかもしれない。
Mm-hmm.
そうしたらポチタだけが心残りだ。悪魔には死んだ人の体を乗っ取れるやつもいるらしい。俺の体をポチタにあげてんだ。
Are the two of them gonna be conjoined? That's such an interesting premise for a TV show. So cool.
私の心臓をやる。代わりにデンジの夢を私に見せてくれ。
All his dreams are gonna come true.
ポチタバラバラにしても生きてんの？やっぱ僕デビルハンター。
Oh, that's great art design on the face, right?
そうか、みんな夢見ちまうんだな。悪いことじゃねえけど。
He's already coming to terms with the past. He's a chainsaw! Is that what that is? Is he literally a chainsaw man? This is so cool. This is so weird and cool. This is just brilliant. Love, again, the 3D animation that's going on here. Oh, all the way up is magnificent. The sound effect. So cool. So incredibly cool. Oh, he's hell-bent on revenge. Love it. Oh, did we see her in the opening sequence, in the opening credits? Love the detail of the iris. What happens if one of his chains becomes faulty? Can he get that repaired, like in a hardware store?
君、変わった匂いがするね。人でも悪魔でもない匂い。これ、君がやったの？
Your handiwork. And now the piano coming in. Oh, the way it melts. That's so cool.
人だ。
Hito da yo.
私はゾンビの悪魔を殺しに来た。公安のデビルハンターなんだ。悪魔として私に殺されるか、人として私に変われるか。
His, her pet.
買うなら。
餌って。
食パンにバターとジャム塗って。
There we go. Oh, what a fabulous shot. Okay, so with that, we have the very first episode of Chainsaw Man finally watched. This has been on the back burner for quite a long time, and I'm delighted to now officially say that I have watched, even if it's just one episode of Chainsaw Man. And yep, it is about an actual chainsaw man. Who would have thunk? So for this review, which is going to be relatively short given the fact that this is just the first episode, I want to talk about kind of where I was beginning this show, with how much I knew beforehand going into it, and what do I think of this as a pilot episode, and how I think it's going to operate given the fact that this is going to be a 12 episode story arc. So first of all, my only prerequisite knowledge on Chainsaw Man was the Mappa teaser trailer that had come out a good few months before the show had. It was the trailer that halfway through it suddenly cuts into like this savage sounding breakcore beat happening, with like all the action sequences happening one after the other. But the sort of prelude to that is all these kind of very slow meandering shots on the characters with like the hand on the skin, and then like little shots of like the sharp fangs and that kind of thing. But again, when I first watched the trailer, which came up on my YouTube recommendations, and I didn't even know it was a trailer because the title was in Japanese, and I at that point I didn't know that the katakana for Tiza Tureru meant that it was a teaser trailer. So you can imagine my surprise. We're halfway through, it just cuts into the music, and I think that this show certainly shows that it is not afraid to do those big dramatic kind of jack-in-a-box moments like that. I think, ironically enough, given the fact that it's the one bit that you won't see in this cut reaction for YouTube, is the OP for this show, where like there's like a shot in which one of the characters is like in a shot-for-shot remake of the diner scene from Pulp Fiction, the iconic shot of Samuel L. Jackson. So this show isn't afraid to have like a sense of humor. I mean, anime, particularly anime that is of a fantasy genre, it tends to have that very kind of tongue-in-cheek humor, but it's tongue-in-cheek more in a meta sense, in the way that the people making these shows and the community for them, they're totally on board with the elements that are going to be totally fantastical and over the top in a way that you wouldn't necessarily get in Western media. For example, earlier today, I filmed my reaction and review of the 2022 movie Suzume. And in that, this isn't a spoiler because it's literally within the first 20 minutes of the movie, one of the main characters gets magically transformed into an inanimate object. And of course, there is the ensuing hilarity that comes from it, but it's still very much played straight. It's a ridiculous concept, but they still play it very straight without a lot of kind of winking to the camera in the way that maybe Western animation does. So then when you have something like Chainsaw Man, which isn't afraid to wink at the camera a little bit like that, I feel as though it gets away with it, because even though at this point I have just only seen the first episode, even from looking at what is there in the OP, as well as some of the dialogue that comes forward, it's able to do the over-the-top slapstick humor, but still do it in a way that's still kind of restrained. It's doing it in a way that is quite it's self-aware in a way where they don't milk it, because that's the point in which you would then transition from kind of giving a bit of a nod to the audience to actually just patting yourself on the back in front of the audience. So I'm glad that there hasn't been anything like that in this episode so far. With that in mind, what is in this episode so far? So as a pilot episode, we're introduced to the character of Deiji. We see that he is this impoverished teenager who, to say that he's down on his luck is an understatement. His mother dead of an illness, his father unable to repay debts to the Yakuza loan sharks, commits suicide. When Deiji is outside his father's tombstone, the Yakuza pulls up in a car. He's like alone in this field where it's just a one tombstone, and the Yakuza car just drives up right beside him and say, "Get me 70,000 yen tomorrow or you'll be a corpse as well. I don't care who you have to kill or even if you have to sell your own body." He's saying this to a child and then just drives away. We have like the top down wide shot seeing the disparity, just seeing like just the tombstone, the child, and the Yakuza car driving away. Like, it's very upfront with its dark humor, but I think it comes across very, very well. It doesn't seem like this is a type of show that's just going to throw dark things at you purely for a cheap laugh. I think it's either going to do it as a well serve. They're going to do it in a way that services an action scene in a way that's very well, or they're even going to do it in a way that serves a character to an even larger degree. So I'm very happy to see the dark humor in the show handled in that kind of a sense. So anyway, back to our protagonist, Deiji. We see that he's down on his luck. This is very much the inciting incident episode for what the season is going to be. As to what it is that's going to be the central conflict, the kind of thing that brings us towards the end of Act 1 for the season story, we don't know. Well, we kind of assume it's going to have something to do with the orange-haired girl at the very end of the episode. I commented in the reaction how I really loved her eye. Like, the animation on the iris is done very, very well, as was all the animation in this show done extremely well. We find out that he's basically moves on from being the Yakuza's pet to being the pet of a girl working for the public safety Bureau. I believe that's what she said. So he's kind of just going from one master to another. And I think the fact that he has literally combined his body with that of a devil dog, something of a pet, and her telling him that you are going to be my pet now is incredibly apt for his character arc. One can only assume that the direction that this show will take for his character is slowly gaining more and more autonomy as time goes on. We definitely saw him kind of reach that emotional, but I suppose you could even go as far as to call it the spiritual arc in this episode, in that him combining his own body with that of the devil dog is now giving him that sense of empowerment. He has that sense of, I'm going to get retribution. If I'm going to be a devil hunter, I am going to be a devil hunter, and that includes anyone whom I purposely perceive as being a devil. I thought that the sequence in which the Yakuza member actually comes full force into his devil form was very, very strong, but I'm also curious to see how, what way would this story look if the Yakuza leader was just a regular human and Denji just killed him anyway, under the premise of, you are a devil as well. Suffice it to say that the show itself clearly knows what it's doing. It's obviously using the overarching external theme of devils to relate to the internal conflict Deiji has of wanting to rid the world of devils, because that's what happened to his family. So be that as it may, it's a great introduction. It's a great introduction to the world as well. Even that opening sequence where we have the kind of the nightmarish POV shot of him walking down the hallway and about to touch a handle, whether that was a memory or a prophecy or a dream or something that happens throughout this story itself, and we'll find out exactly what that is at a later stage. Nonetheless, just from an aesthetic, visceral standpoint, it's great at showing us that this is a show that's going to have a lot of horror. It's going to have a lot of psychological stress. It's one in which the show is going to go out of its way to not necessarily be on the side of the audience, but instead it's actively going to work against the audience to allow us to keep guessing as to what is going to happen. The world building itself was good in the sense that I feel as though, for as upfront as the show is with its action sequences, the show seems to know what it wants to do with regards to it's holding back on giving us a lot of exposition or a lot of explanation as to exactly who these people are or what's happening in the world. I think that the show, just based on what I've seen in episode 1, is either going to hold back on those details and kind of slowly give it to us piece by piece as the rest of the 11 episodes unfold, or maybe they're not going to give it to us at all and keep this as a show with a more minimalist approach to world building so that we can just focus directly on the characters and make our own inferences as to who these people are, why they operate in this world to the degree that they do. In any sense, I thought it was very, very strong, in the sense that we immediately learned that Deiji is down on his luck to the point of having to sell his eyeballs and actual balls as a means to an end of paying off the Yakuza debt. We see that this is a world in which the existence of devils is accepted into this world because he's walking down the street with his devil chainsaw dog. And again, we do get we have enough realism to see he's on his smartphone looking at how much debt he owes, but it's nonetheless a kind of a dark dystopia that we are living in, the existence of devils and the existence of Yakuza and the deadly means that it will go through. I think the final thing that I want to talk about is more so to do with speculation. This is going into where I think the show is going to go. I'm interested to see if we're going to get this more overarching story to do with the Public Safety Bureau versus that of other Yakuza. I think that the show is definitely planting seeds to let us know that there's going to be further explanation as to how devils operate and what devils are and where they come from. Do they come from the ether? Have they always been here? Have humans always been interacting with devils? Is a devil something one becomes as a result of the things they do in life? Are devils something that spawn from a more spiritual point of view. If a particular area has a lot of bad people living in it, is that what causes devils to appear? So I'm very curious to see as to whether or not that is going to come into the show in any way. The second thing I want to speculate on is, again, just the idea of what way is this show going to do humor? Because when I say that the show knows exactly what it's doing, again, I don't necessarily mean that in kind of a meta way. It's not about necessarily kind of nodding to the audience or doing things that are so obviously existent as a, I suppose you could call it extra textual or subtextual. Again, I'm just thinking of the Pulp Fiction, the direct reference they made there. I don't necessarily think it's just going to be relegated to that. I think that the show itself is going to do things that are so over the top and morbid, and then just kind of not talk about them, just kind of like move on, that it seems as though it establishes the fact that it's not just, and I understand that this is not only a thin line, but it's something that is also very subjective from viewers to viewers. There are some people who may view this initial episode and think that it's a little edgy, a little kind of a bit being a little bit too provocative, a little bit too much like an edgelord for their sensibilities, and that's totally understandable. But for me, I feel as though the comedy is able to deliver something that is very dark and very morbid and very in your face and grotesque and gross out with the morbidity. But it doesn't feel like it's just doing it to get a rise or to get something cheap or to point at itself and say, look how dark I am. I think that they're really going out of their way, just what I'm seeing with the first episode, and hopefully it'll maintain that. I think it's going out of its way to show that this is just a dark story, and this is just, not just a dark story, I just mean in the sense that this is fundamentally a dark story and fundamentally dark characters, and then everything that is going to coincide with that fact. So be that as it may, I think I'm going to leave that for the review for this episode, given the fact that this is the only episode of the show that I've seen thus far, and it is kind of traditional with anime, particularly with the more kind of dark, psychologically based anime, that it's not really going to be until like the third or fourth episode that you'll truly get a grasp as to what's coming up. I understand again that there is only 12 episodes of this season. It is my understanding that there is a manga, but I don't know how long the manga goes on to. Ages and ages ago, I spoke to somebody about it, and you can tell me in the comments, maybe you don't want to tell me in the comments, whatever, but I vaguely remember him saying that the manga covers what would amount to 2.5 seasons worth of story based on the pacing that has happened in this initial season. But suffice it to say, I'm not necessarily that deterred by that. I'm kind of one of those people who tries their best to view an anime and its preceding manga as two separate things. Of course, for obvious reasons, the two of them complement each other very well and they compare. But as it stands, I try to, the best I can, just view each iteration as its own thing. So it's not necessarily a case of saying, well, I think the manga is better because of this, and I think the anime is better because of that. That happens a little bit, but I just also want to make it clear to you guys watching that when I am reviewing the anime, I'm trying to keep the manga out of my head. And for the exact same reason, if I end up reviewing the manga, I'll try to keep the anime out of my head. At least insofar as being able to come to a conclusion as to its own inclusive quality. And then after that, of course, I can compare the two of them. For instance, right now, I'm in the middle of reading the manga for Death Note, which I absolutely love. And I've seen I've seen the anime a couple times, and I do understand the flaws people have with the anime. And of course, I have my own flaws as well. But even just kind of seeing the individual idiosyncrasies of the original manga relative to knowing what happens in the anime, it is interesting, but it also doesn't make me think of it in terms of this is better than the anime or worse than the anime. I just try to view each separate medium as its own thing. So with that idea in mind, I'm not necessarily going to go into the rest of Chainsaw Man trying to think in my head, like it does seem like a pace that's quicker than the manga. I just don't think it's fair to either medium to view it that way. But that being said, I am extremely excited to watch more Chainsaw Man. That is exactly what I'm going to be doing now. What I'm going to be doing for the rest of these reactions, the remainder of these reactions, with the exception of the series finale, will be Patreon only exclusives. They will be the full uncut reaction to the episode, where you'll be able to sync your own copy to mine. You can listen to the show then in any language you wish. And then that allows me to spend more time bringing out reviews instead. So each episode will have a review on YouTube. It's only going to be the first and last episode that will have a cut reaction on YouTube as well. The reason I'm doing it this way is that this channel began primarily as a reaction channel, and instead I've realized that I would prefer this channel to be primarily a review channel. But I think having the reactions that are there in a cut format here or there would be useful to the free viewers of this channel, basically. But then, of course, as always, everything that I review, with the exception of brand new cinema movies, everything I review will have a full first-time reaction on Patreon that you can check out for just $1 a month. And of course, you can then vote on things that I'm going to view next. And if I am watching a new anime series, if there's any particular episode you would want to watch in a cut format, you could do that as well. But be that as it may, I know the last couple of minutes have been a little bit more housekeeping rather than talking about the first episode. But I think the episode itself is just so strong that it has me kind of thinking of all these things now, just because I know I'm so excited. I know I'm so excited to see more, and I know that I'm 100% going to stick with this, with the remaining 11 episodes, because this initial episode was just so incredibly strong. So, that being said, I want to thank you so much for taking time to check out this video. Your support really does mean a lot, whether you're one of the patrons or you're just here on YouTube to watch me react to your favorite moments from this first episode. It truly means a lot that you go out of your way to watch this video. So again, thank you so much. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thanks for watching.